underscored the need to subsidize farmers during planting seasons, while Pa Malik Cisse called for the revitalization of the Kaur depot, which is currently underutilized.
Kindly tell us what you did right in 2009, and then what you think have contributed to the shortfall in 2011.
The external auditors had this to say.
Management should work on ensuring that the Finance Department prepare quarterly management accounts to assist with operational decision-making processes.
The member for Sandu, Honorable Abdullah Kanaji Jawla, was concerned about the loan recovery process of the GCC and the progress made so far, while Honorable Njai Dabo and the member for Banjul Central raised the alarm on the issue of farmers selling their nuts beyond Gambian shores and the case of SECOM managers absconding with farmers' monies.
3 provides a grid showing a bridge financing from local banks. And I would like to know whether the overutilization of the Guaranteed Trust facility did incur any extra charges.
Responding to the earlier concerns, GCC management maintained that great progress has been registered in the recovery of loans. However, they emphasized the need for government to establish agri-financing facilities, as commercial banks are not always dependable. Management also disclosed plans to ensure routine checks on all SECOM managers to ensure timely delivery of farmers' monies. The board chairman emphasized that with groundnut being the country's chief cash crop, efforts can only be intensified to ensure the sector's improvement so that whatever leaves Gambian shores is good enough to be associated with the name Gambia. The GCC consequently had their activity and financial reports approved and considered by lawmakers. Samuel Ba, GRTS.
We're going to take a very short break now. The news continues here on GRTS right after.
It is a story of a land, of a people, where communication has been our song, our drumbeat. We sing with hearts full of joy. We dream of a better future, one that is upon us now. This is who we are. We are close to the heart of the world. We are as old as time. The soul of man began with us. We are Africa.
Welcome back to GRTS News. The M23 rebel group is promising to meet a key demand of regional leaders and African Union by withdrawing some 20 kilometers from Goma. It is the city the rebels captured last week. The situation there, though, remains volatile, and the rebels insist they will keep the administration in Goma as well as a 100-strong contingent at the city's airport. We have details of that story in this report.
M23 rebels are still in control of the city of Goma in the eastern DR Congo. Local police are helping the rebels patrol the streets of North Kivu's capital. The promise by the rebels to withdraw from Goma, made at the emergency summit of regional leaders in Kampala, has not yet been honored, although there are reports that troops are moving towards Rutshuru. We will leave 100 men behind at the airport. The rest will leave. A band plays at a crossroads where a demonstration is being held. A crowd of young Congolese wave banners with anti-Kabila slogans. Despite the air of spontaneity, the protest gives the impression of having been organized. The goal is to denounce DR Congo's current government. We don't want Kabila and all his soldiers here. If they ever come back while the M23 are here, there will never be peace. They will make our lives difficult. However, the rebels' demands, which once concerned only the region, are growing. We request that Mr. Kabila immediately and without conditions lift the restrictions imposed on the freedom of Mr. Tshisekedi since the November 2011 elections. We also demand the release without conditions of political prisoners. The aim of the strategy is apparently to make any negotiations with Kinshasa impossible and to unite the opposition against an increasingly isolated government.
Anti-government demonstrators have clashed in the Egyptian capital, Cairo. Many of the protesters are angered by President Mohamed Morsi's decision to take up sweeping powers. Police fired tear gas at protesters who described President Morsi's action dictatorial. We have details in this report.
Tahrir Square was once again a hub of activity. Protesters everywhere, tear gas in the air, and face-offs with the police. It was a throwback to the early days of the revolution of last year. However, this time the people were accusing the new president, Mohamed Morsi, of becoming a dictator.
What you have done, Mr. President, is you have divided the country in two. It is shameful.
In giving himself powers above the judiciary, the Islamic president now has a growing group of those against him. Massive protests marked by violence in the major cities have already left 3 dead and hundreds wounded. The judges who sparked the latest wave contesting Morsi's decree refuse to accept any other outcome.
Our country is in flames, and only you, Mr. President, can extinguish the flames. The Egyptian people, for the first time, and God knows how this will end.
Washington, who has been helping bring about a diplomatic transition in Egypt, has kept quiet on this recent crisis.
Obviously, the current constitutional impasse is an internal Egyptian situation that can only be resolved by the Egyptian people through peaceful democratic dialogue.
A dialogue that appears to be set aside for the moment. All opposition parties are united in denouncing the presidential decree that grants him far-reaching powers, powers that resemble the previously ousted President Mubarak.
The remains of former Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat are back inside his tomb in Ramallah this Wednesday, but the details of his death 8 years ago could soon be out in the open. Arafat's body was exhumed Tuesday as forensic experts looked for evidence that he was poisoned. CNN's Frederick Blayton has the details.
This was all the public was able to see of the exhumation process, a solemn ceremony at the end, with members of the Palestinian leadership laying wreaths to commemorate the late Yasser Arafat. Before that, medical and forensic teams from France, Switzerland, and Russia, as well as Palestinian doctors, worked behind this blue tarpaulin, opening the late Palestinian leader's grave and taking samples from the remains.
Everything was carried out with all ease and clarity and exactly as was agreed upon by all. There were no problems, thank God, and all matters took place in an orderly and agreed upon way.
8 years after Arafat's sudden severe illness and death, the cause is still unknown. Palestinians say Israel is behind any poisoning, a claim the Israeli government refuses to comment on. The experts involved in the case will examine the samples for possible traces of poison, especially the radioactive substance polonium-210, which has been used in assassinations in the past. It was an emotional day for many Palestinians. The Palestinian Authority described Arafat's exhumation as a sad but necessary process. The samples will now be independently analyzed in labs in Russia, France, and Switzerland, and results are expected in about 3 months. Even after his death, Yasser Arafat remains a towering figure for Palestinians, and not everyone agrees with the exhumation. Of course I am against it, he says. It is insulting to the martyr and to the Palestinian people. And some international experts doubt that polonium-210 could still be traced in Arafat's remains 8 years after his death.
At this point, the body being totally skeletonized without any soft tissue, there's very little that they can do. Poisons are not going to be found, essentially looking in skeletal remains.
If forensic experts do find high levels of polonium in the body, the next question investigators will try to answer is, who is behind the death of Yasser Arafat? Fred Pleitkin, CNN, Ramallah.
Well, we now take a second break. We'll be right back.
Working Chamber of Commerce, AmCham, the Gambia, will be holding its second annual business dinner on Friday.